recording?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a Filtrete filter. This is the purple one that we've been using. Somebody sent this. Lauren, is that her name? Lauren from LaughNet sent this in the mail with a gift card. So thank you so much. You just take this frame off. It's just cardboard. You just cut this frame off. It's a little bit tricky because it's built to stay in there, but I just break it down. And if you look, it's just held on by hot glue right there. That's just hot glue. So if you can get this cardboard frame off, take that off all the way around. That is all that's holding this bad boy on, is the cardboard frame and some hot glue. And then you just want to pull the metal chicken wire looking stuff off of both sides. And you want to take the frame off the whole thing. I've already got one broken down, so I'm not going to do all of that. But you're left with this. And then you can either pull off these bits of hot glue or cut them off. We're trying to salvage, so, well, not really salvage, but, you know, use as much of our resources as we can, since we are sheltered in place in Texarkana. So you just pull that apart and you're left with something that looks like this. This is folded in thirds, and so it comes out real long. And I'm just gonna cut this with the exact same pattern that I have been using to cut down the material. So this is an A part. I do the mask one on the Instructables pattern that we've posted on our Facebook page multiple times. And I use the B piece. It's the smaller of the two because we don't need a pocket or the long pieces for the filter, because the long pieces fold over the elastic. And then I have cut off, if you see, about almost 3/4 of an inch off of the bottom of this filter, because that is about what the seam allowance is. So I'm going to just cut this filter down with this template. I use a little rotary cutter, or it looks like a pizza cutter to me, just because it's easier for me. Same way, this is the same process I use to cut our fabric. Just cut around your template. I pin mine in place so it's easier. Danielle doesn't, so it's whatever you're most comfortable with. Watch your fingers because these things are sharp. I have a specific, this is a specific rotary that I'm using for our filter because the filter is not made of fabric. I'm not real sure exactly what this filter is made out of. Plexiglass? No, that's not right. Plexiglass is glass. I mean fiberglass. But it's not itchy, so I'm not real sure. It's like a papery type feeling, and my sewing scissors are for fabric only. So there's the filter. The filter template that I have cut out. Now, I have already sewn together the A pieces and the B pieces of a mask. So this is just an A piece of material, 2 A pieces sewn together on the curve, 2 B pieces sewn together on the curve, and then you put the A and the B together and turn it right side out and you get this. And if you look, this is the same size and shape. So what I'm gonna do is, in order to get a doubled filter, which offers you an extra layer of protection, so we have 3, I'm gonna sew these 2 B pieces, they're technically just B pieces, together, just like I would sew them together for a mask. So you want to line them up as best you can. I like to start at the bottom because it gives me a landmark. Let me find my presser foot. I mean my pedal. And then I just sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like you would for the mask. I'm sewing this inside, so I didn't back stitch on the beginning and the end like I would on the mask, just because it's going inside of the mask. Okay, so now what I do is I take some regular scissors and I'm just gonna trim this down right up against this seam, just because I don't want it real bulky. This is the part that's gonna go on your face. You don't want it too bulky. Nobody wants a gonzo nose. Cut that seam, and then just like with the mask, I'm going to turn one inside out so that I can put the right sides together, just like that. That looks just like it does when I do the mask. And so I'm just going to do a quick little stitch down the center of these winged parts just to kind of hold it together, because I don't want it wiggling around and separating inside the mask. So I'm just gonna do nothing real fancy. I'm gonna do that on both sides. Uh-oh. Sorry. My thread came out. Okay, you can trim your threads. I'm gonna just kind of trim them long, just because it adds a little extra bulk inside there when you leave them. I usually wait until the very end to trim all of my threads. And this is not, the sewing on the sides is not for function or fancy necessarily. It's just to kind of hold things together. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this right along that seam, and I'm going to take my mask, which is an A and a B sewn together, and on the B side I'm going to slide this in the same direction. So this pointy part's going to go to this pointy part, and I'm just going to slide this right in and open it up. Make sure to get my point at my point and slide it down. So because you use the same template, you'll have the same shape in there. So your seam down the middle is going to be the same. So just line those seams up, and then you're going to end up with this, which doesn't look much different than those fancy masks, or not even those fancy ones, but those store-bought ones. So then to get my nose piece, I'm just gonna sew a little channel. I'm gonna sew across the middle, to the middle, across it, and then out about as much as I think I'm gonna need. This is not an exact science because I'm gonna take it off the machine. I wasn't taking it off the machine and it was taking me twice as long. And then I'm gonna take a piece of my wire. This is just flat jewelry wire. We were using just plain 20 gauge floral wire and it works, it's just real thin. And I was afraid it would poke through and stab you. So I found this by chance. I ordered some more from Hobby Lobby and some from Amazon. And then I'm just gonna measure my channel. You want about, how big is that, would you say? Oops. About an inch on each side of the seam. And then take my wire cutters. Cut that off. And then I'm gonna slide this on the top side because this part's gonna be on your nose, so I put it on the top side. I'm sure it doesn't really matter that much, but I think as somebody who's worn masks before for comfort, I don't want that wire right on me. And just feed it through your channel.
So when you say on top here,
I mean,
the filter and the cloth?
Yes, on top of the filter and on the top part of the mask. So underneath this, the wire is right here. Underneath that is 2 layers of filter and another layer of material between your face and the wire. So flatten that wire out, and you want to figure out where the end of that wire is because it will break your needle, or it can. Sew down to about where and so now I'm just going to meet these two together, being careful that my wire does not get in the way, and then back stitch over that space. So there's that. So now I have a wired nose piece. So now I'm going to take my elastics, which these are just hair ties, and I like to stretch mine out. It makes them just a tiny bit bigger.
They have different sizes too.
They do. I have, well, actually I think, I have one more set of large elastics because I do this in a large size too. So for people who have a normal size face but kind of bigger ears or have trouble with these tiny wire elastics, I can put these on a normal sized mask like this, or I can put the big elastics on a large mask. So you kind of get like a regular plus and a large. So to do this, the pattern that I use says to sew this down before you sew all this together, and I don't do that because I have better things to do with my time, like sew a filter. So I put this right at that raw edge. I fold it once and fold it twice with those edges kind of pulled inside, and then I sew it down. And you're going to want to back stitch a pretty good way at the beginning, at the end. And the needle will break with this elastic too, just like it will with that wire. And you do that on both sides. So one more time, on the raw edge, let that elastic sit there. Kind of bring your corners in, which they're naturally going to want to do anyway. And then fold once, fold twice. Get your elastic out of the way and sew it down. Sometimes it wants to be a little tricky. And just make sure that seam is folded under and that you've back stitched at each edge, because that's where all of the work is going to go, is right there. So now you could ideally be done. However, to give it a finished look, I like to top stitch it. And to do that, I'm gonna give just the, so this filter is right, if you could feel it, it's right here, right where my nail is on both sides. So that, right on the inside part of that is where I'm gonna sew. So about the amount of the seam allowance. And I'm gonna start at one end and go all the way around. I like to kind of go slow because you're gonna see this. I think this is technically called a top stitch. I'm not a seamstress, I'm a nurse, so I don't know nothing about that. I just know that I wanted a way to keep the filter stabilized inside for washing. And so when I get to this earpiece part, I'm gonna plant my needle and turn. And you can sew right back down that seam again. That also gives it a little bit more reinforcement at those earpieces, because you don't want these falling apart. Just follow the curve of the material. And when I get to this nose piece, I need to scooch over a hair because I want to sew around that nose piece wire. Because like I said, it can break your needle. So that also keeps your nose piece from wiggling around and ending up where you don't want it, especially when you wash it. So this is where I started. I'm just gonna sew right over where I started and then back. And that is it. And then we will clip our threads. Careful with your sewing scissors because they are sharp. I snipped a whole piece off and almost took an elastic out yesterday because I got in a hurry. You're gonna have quite a few little threads because we've been sewing on this a bunch. And I keep my threads long so they don't suck into the machine. And so I can see where they are. And then you've got a pretty stable mask here. We washed ours a couple of times in the washer and we lay it flat to dry. So you got your nose piece, your double layer filter, 2 layers of 100% cotton. And I'd be willing to fit test in this.
Looks awesome.
That's it.